Welcome back to Live Open Daily, coming to you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, with all the news that's fit to print in the XR community. I'm your host, Live Open Mike, and today we just have two topics. The first is the new map for Population 1 and battle mode called Phoenix Royale. Now, I typically don't really play a lot of shooters. I like to play story games, so if I'm going to play a shooter, it's going to be a story-based shooter, a la something like Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sister, Half-Life Alyx, games like that. I did try a bunch of PvP shooters when I first got into VR, and Population 1 being the most popular Battle Royale at the time, I gave that one a run. I found that I don't really like Battle Royale games because generally the gameplay loop is, for any Battle Royale, is you land somewhere, you do a whole lot of looting, load up your guns, get your shields up, everything like that. But depending on where everyone else landed on the map and how populated the map is, how full the lobbies are, you may not run into anyone for, several minutes. And depending on how good you are, you might get killed at the first opportunity. Then the game's over and you start all over again. I much prefer games like Contractors, which is still my favorite shooter to this day, and things like Team Deathmatch, because you get back into the game quickly through respawns and just keep the action moving. You're not just kind of standing aside waiting for your next lobby. So Big Box, the developers of Population 1, I guess kind of took some of this to heart, and they wanted to reevaluate and evolve what the Battle Royale meant, especially in VR, especially when you're standing up and you're trying to get physical. So standing around is probably one of the worst things you could do to a VR player. This new Phoenix Royale battle mode and map changes a lot of things about how Pop 1 plays. In my opinion, most of this is for the better. We're going to get into the details here in a moment. I had the chance to play this on my Twitch stream just a few hours before I recorded this podcast, so all of my impressions are going to be fresh. Now, this isn't the first time Population 1 has done a new map. In 2022, they introduced a new map called Metropolis. It was a fully separate map from the classic map, and they built the Battle Royale mode around that. They also incorporated a part of Metropolis into the main classic map. But the thing with Metropolis was, even though the map was different and it was interesting to explore, they didn't change any of the gameplay mechanics other than adding jump pads. So if you walked on the jump pad, it would boost you up to the top of a building, so it made traversal around the map a little bit quicker after you already ejected from your pod. But other than that, the game played almost exactly the same. Phoenix Royale, this is very much not the case. It feels like the developers wanted to approach every single aspect of a Battle Royale and make it more fast-paced and faster for players to get back into the match. Now, there's a blog on Meta's website with an interview from the lead developer, Katie Nugent, and the producer, Aaron Houtz, about Phoenix Royale. I'm going to read some excerpts of that before I get into the specific differences, because they did go through some of that. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. First question, what was the inspiration behind the Phoenix Royale update? From Katie Nugent, Phoenix Royale empowers existing and new players alike to be adventurous, take risks, and try again multiple times within a single match. When the player is knocked out, they automatically redeploy from the sky as long as the Phoenix redeploy is active and their teammates are still in the game. Redeploying can be an exciting moment for players who love to stay in action and encourage players who are new to Battle Royales to give the genre a try. From the beginning, we always thought of Battle Royale as a blank canvas where players have a common goal but are free to climb, fly, and fight anywhere they choose. What Phoenix Royale wanted to add on to the idea of balanced gameplay by giving players even more opportunities to play how they want. Another question, how did community feedback contribute to this update? This from Nugent again. Map updates are consistently one of the most requested changes. Players have asked for additional Battle Royale maps since the beginning, and while we've added new areas to the current map many times and allowed custom maps to be created in the sandbox, we felt that this was the perfect time to add a new full-size map paired with a new game mode. The Phoenix Royale map incorporates a lot of feedback from the community and learnings over the past several years. We especially wanted it to play different than our classic Battle Royale map. The regions are densely populated to encourage different styles of play. Also added supply crates around the map which players can open to find items. These crates automatically refill each time the battle zone shrinks, which enables players to easily find loot even if someone else had already explored that building. Question, what's your favorite part of the update and why? Being able to get creative and choose your own progression by upgrading your weapons or choosing your class at the buy stations located around the map. They allow players to try different loadouts, level up their favorite weapon, or call a supply drop for high value items. Even collecting our new in-game currency, gem bars, is super satisfying and can be done in various ways, from opening the supply crates, capturing loot vaults by fighting bots, or simply fighting other players and taking their gem bars. It's up to the player to decide how they approach each map. Phoenix Royale gives players more agency than ever before. Question, if people take away one thing from Phoenix Royale, what do you hope that would be and why? From Nugent, Phoenix Royale is designed to have all the thrills of Battle Royale, whether you're an expert or trying it for the first time. Get creative, venture around the map, fight other players, and if you get knocked out, rise again. Each Phoenix Royale match will be filled with plenty of excitement for all players. So they did touch on a lot there. I'll go through the differences. The first one are the supply crates. Traditionally, in most battle royales, including Population 1, when you land in a specific area, you can just find ammo, loot, in this case, backpacks to expand your inventory, just kind of scattered around the area. Well, if you play the game enough, you tended to learn very quickly which areas were the best looting, even though some of that does get randomized. In general, you knew where the best weapons were. So if you played the game a ton, you had an inherent advantage in that. If you're like me, you play the game, I don't know, once every few months or so, you tend to forget that stuff and you go for the areas where you don't think most players are just by looking around where everyone else's pods are dropping. And then you just hope that there's going to be loot there. But the other important thing to note here, and it's not in this interview, is that the supply crates, every single time the zone moves, the zone for people who don't play Battle Royales, the zone for people who don't play Battle Royales is the entire map is open when the round starts, but there's a red square around the entire map, and that red square does damage to you. It shrinks as the map goes on, so it basically funnels all the players into a smaller zone to basically end the match so everyone just doesn't camp in one spot and wait for people to walk by. In Phoenix Royale, every single time the zone moves or shrinks, all of the supply crates restock. So what the producers talked about earlier, where sometimes you would happen upon a place that had already been looted and you're just out of luck. In this version of the game, even if you happen upon a place where another player already been, once that zone shrinks, all the supply crates, you actually watch an animation of them close and restock, and you can still get gear. That evens up the playing field a bit, especially for new players, because you're always going to be able to find gear and weapons and ammo and be able to protect yourself, as opposed to the traditional map where, again, you could be out of luck if you go to an area or you land in an area that's already been looted by another team. The map itself, I think, is fantastic. One of the producers said in this that it's much more populated, and they're not kidding. A lot of the original Population 1 map is pretty wide open. There's not a lot of places to actually like hide or protect yourself. Just a lot of like rock hills, and there's some hay bales in the farming area of it. But for the most part, it's pretty open, which means you're wide open to be sniped from someone who's like maybe sitting on a tower in the middle of the map. I'll talk more about that in a second. This map, there's a ton of cars. There's a lot of like different levels up and down, other buildings of different heights. So it's a much more difficult for someone to just kind of camp and wait. And also for you to keep moving because you're looking for supply crates and things like that. It just feels like a more robust map and not one that's just sniper heavy where you're more encouraged to just get into the action. The games I played in Phoenix Royale on my Twitch stream were probably some of the most exciting and the most fun I've had in a game since I started playing it 3 years ago. And the map's a large part of that. The original map had these areas like the satellite dishes, silos, and there's a gigantic tower in the middle of the map where people would just hang on the tower or hang at the top of the satellite dishes and literally just sit there and snipe anyone who came by. Because of poor visibility, especially if you were playing on Quest, because the draw distance wasn't that good, sometimes you would get sniped before you knew what happened because you couldn't even see the tower or see the satellite dish because it had not popped into your field of view yet. That was really, really frustrating. I'm glad they're getting rid of stuff like that. This new map really doesn't have a whole lot of sniping spots I saw. And if they do, the zone actually starts moving around once it becomes a certain size. So it doesn't just shrink to one square. It actually starts to hop around so people can't just sit there in the same spot. The map is a huge part of this and it makes the game a lot more fun. The vault wasn't my favorite thing in that. It's a capture point that you have to kill about 3 to 4, I think it was like 4 or 5 bots the one time we did do it. But once you open it, all you got were gem bars to be able to go to the power station to like power up your guns. We didn't get a whole lot. Given you're playing in the squad of trios, I think there were only like 50 gem bars in the whole thing. Just to split that between three, that's less than 20 per player. Less than 20 doesn't get you one upgrade. If this were a solos mode, that would make a lot more sense. But for the amount of effort that we went through going through the bots and then standing there completely out in the open, waiting for the capture point to trigger so the vault would open, I didn't feel like the rewards were worth it for a squad of 3. Hopefully they rebalance that down the line. I like the mechanic. I just think the reward should be more worth it. You do get a gold gun if you manage to capture a vault, but the one time we did actually do it, it was a shotgun, which isn't my favorite gun. So we kind of taking a chance there. The buy stations, I think, are an excellent addition to this. It's a place where you can spend the gem bars, which, by the way, only count for the match that you're in. They don't carry over outside of that. There's no level of progression there. You can spend gem bars to upgrade your gun. So most of the guns around the map you find in like the chests are going to be like white, or sometimes you get a blue one. You rarely get a purple. You have to go to one of these stations and then pay to upgrade your gun, which one exposes you, so there's a bit of risk there. But it does give you a centralized location to upgrade whatever gun you want, as opposed to just the randomized action of, okay, you might find a gold gun, but it might be a gold Magnum or a gold Uzis or gold, twin shotguns, a gun that I personally don't like. You can also call supply drops like the producers talked about. I didn't really do this because I don't really chase supply drops. That's just not my playing style. The class structure in these buy stations I really like because they offer different perks that you can pick depending on your playstyle. For instance, if you pick the medic class, your defibrillator pass to revive a teammate go faster. If you pick the tank class, you take less damage from the zone or from like throwing weapons like grenades or rocket launchers. So you can kind of tailor your class depending on your playstyle and basically buff your character up to be more powerful. I really like that because again, you're customizing the game to the playstyle of the player and giving them choices. A lot of Battle Royale gameplay seems to be completely randomized unless you just memorize where the best parts on the map are. So they lean more towards people who frequent the game, and it makes it harder for new players to get in. The redeploy system, again, I like this. It's akin to something like respawning in a team deathmatch. I'm really curious how the Population 1 community takes to this because it's not something you find in the traditional Battle Royale. In the classic mode of Population 1, if you get down, each player has a set of defibrillator pads in their inventory, and you can rub them together to shock your player back to life. If you get down, you have to then run down your teammate. They have to get to a safe place where they're going to get killed, and then they defibrillate you and bring you back to life. Multiple times when I or the teammate got killed in my play session, it made more sense for the teammate that was still alive to run around and protect themselves from the enemies that were advancing while we just waited to redeploy. So basically just stay alive long enough for the redeploy to trigger. The redeploys do stop after the zone seems to have shrunk to a certain size, or maybe it's a player count. I'm not exactly sure what the timing is on that. And then you have to revive your partners after that point. But the redeploy system, again, adds another element of strategy because now players have choices as to whether or not to revive their player or just wait for the redeploy to happen because they're in a bad position or they don't want to expose themselves and so on and so forth. So again, it's a great addition. It changes the pace of the game. Really love it. And the last one, and this is something that I've had a problem with on Pop 1 for a while, you can finally run. I thought the walk speed in Population 1 was insanely slow. You can speed it up a bit by holding your knife. I think they gave you like a 25% boost in speed, but you could not actually run. They've introduced a stamina bar that sits right under your health meter. It's a little white bar that depletes very quickly. You just click in your left analog stick and that lets you run. If you click it twice, you go into a sprint, basically that keeps you running without you having to hold it down. And it just increases the pace of the game and lets you get away from people who are shooting at you faster. I just don't understand why there wasn't a run mechanic in the game in the first place. I think it's because this game came out several years ago, and this is back when developers were a little bit shaky on how much VR players can handle in terms of comfort, and fast movement was something that could be a motion sickness trigger. I'm glad developers are starting to move away from slow moving characters and give you a bit more speed. It was a welcome addition. As for things I didn't like, number one, I still wish there were a solo player mode for this map. You could do a solo player mode in Pop 1, but it's under training, and I'm pretty sure it's just a bot lobby. You're not playing with actual real players. I don't think I've ever encountered a real player in the game. I can tell because the bots literally just run straight at you shooting. They don't take any cover. They don't back off to heal. They just run straight at you with guns. Those are usually bots. Phoenix Royale does not have a single player mode, so again, you're stuck playing trios the whole time, and that creates two inherent problems. Number one, if you're someone like me who does not like playing with random people, you basically won't touch the game unless you have a full squad to go into. When I decided to play this on Twitch, I advertised a week ahead of time to make sure I had people to play with. And the second one of them was going to drop out, I was just going to be done in the stream because I don't want to play with randos. Second, because the map is still so large and teams generally are going to move together, instead of having a lobby of 18 people and you're looking around for 17 different people all doing their own thing, you're basically looking for 5 clusters. So it still has that battle royale feel of you're looking for people, you're looking for people, you're looking for people. And I really felt that on stream last night. There were stretches of like 10 minutes where we didn't see a single other character. And then we get engaged in like one firefight, we lost and the match was over. So there's still that battle royale thing that I don't particularly care for. But I think a solo player mode would actually help that because then all the players would be more spread out because you're not worried about teaming up with somebody. This is especially accented because now we're seeing a game like Contractor Showdown where they were embedded. They're experimenting with 60 player lobbies at one point. They also just recently, I think in the last week, instituted a solo mode. It wasn't experimental mode, but now they said it is permanent. To see another Battle Royale do lobbies over twice the size of Population 1 and still successfully pull it off and have an engaged player base makes me wonder why Population 1 hasn't taken a step yet. They'll occasionally, as like a special event, put a solo mode into the game, but then they'll pull it right back out and go back to the traditional trios mode. I hope they take a look at the solo mode and expanding the lobbies for Population 1 down the line. It's not really germane to this conversation about Phoenix Royale. I just hope the developers think about that in general because I think a lot of players have wanted the solo mode for a while. I don't always have a squad available to squad up with, and not everyone wants to play with random people in the public lobby. Most people, especially older gamers, tend to shy away from it. So hopefully they take a look at that down the line. But in general, I think they crushed it with Phoenix Royale. They did a great job. absolutely smashed it. I'm going to be playing more tonight actually after I finish work, and I haven't been excited to play Population 1 in a while, so great job on the update. Second topic and the final one of the week, of the first week of Live Open Daily, appreciate you coming out and supporting the podcast, is Virtual Desktop. Virtual Desktop has just been updated to now support multiple monitors, including virtual monitors, which opens up a whole different use case for this app. Virtual Desktop in general has been used by people who are on standalone devices like Quest 1s, Quest 2, Quest 3s, and Picos to be able to play Steam VR without having to use the proprietary software. There's a streaming assistant for Pico, and then there's something like QuestLink or AirLink for Quest. But if you were looking for more control over things like your bit rate, the encoding codec that you use, you didn't have those options in AirLink, and you didn't have those options on the Pico Assistant. You just took whatever it gave you. Virtual Desktop is a paid app. I think it's $20, but it's the best version of this because, again, for people who are in the know and they're tech savvy, you get a lot more control over the quality of your stream from your PC into your headset, because you can tweak the settings and dial it into your specific rig and get the best possible performance out of it. But that was generally what Virtual Desktop was used for, was just to play PC VR games. With this new expansion, it feels like they're moving more into the productivity part of it, because now for people who have multiple monitors, which is a lot of gamers, before you could only look at one monitor and you could switch between them back and forth. I have a 3-monitor setup here. So if I were like working, for instance, I would have like my main video editor, which is DaVinci, in front of me. And then I might have, Discord on my right, because my company runs a lot of things through Discord. And then on the left, I maybe have like a Spotify player or YouTube playing a playlist of music in the background while I work. Being able to bring multiple monitors in the Virtual Desktop allows me to move into that spatial computing realm and maybe a little bit out of gaming, because now I can actually work in VR or on much larger screens. And unlike something like Horizon Workrooms, which I have tried for this purpose, Horizon Workrooms actually changes the resolution of your physical monitors, making some stuff harder to read in VR. I don't know if this is a bandwidth thing or a limitation of the tech, because they coded to like Quest 1 and Quest 2, but especially on Quest 3, which is a higher resolution headset, I hated the fact that I still cannot read some of the text on my monitors. That kind of turned me off using it. Virtual Desktop on Quest 3 specifically can support up to 3 monitors at 1440p. Everything was sharp and crisp and very easy to read. I'm going to be playing around with this for like productivity things. I'm going to be doing some 2D gaming in it. I'm actually going to test it on my Twitch stream tonight, because I'm in the middle of playing a flat game, Persona 4, and I'm going to test playing that in my headset with Persona 4 directly in front of me, and then OBS on my left and my Twitch stream on my right, so I can read chat, because now it's more conducive to doing that and getting a good experience. I don't really know how the latency feels. I'll talk more about that later. If you guys are interested, let me know down in the comments. But I'm excited that this opens up a new use case for it. I should point out that 3 monitors is only supported on Quest 3. Let me check the chart here real quick. I'm reading the Upload VR's excellent article about this. If you're on Quest 2, Quest Pro, Pico, or Vive, you can support up to 2 monitors. The resolution for a single monitor can be 2560 by 1440. The resolution for multiple monitors is 1920 by 1080p. If you're still on Quest 1, why are you still on Quest 1? If you're still on Quest 1, you can only get 1 monitor at 1080p. You can still only support 1 monitor. You cannot get multiple. For Quest 3, the max resolution on a single monitor is 3840 by 2160. And for multiple monitors, like I'm using it for, is 2560 by 1440, so 1440p. Again, I think this is excellent. It's a great use of already existing software. Again, home run, 2 home run updates today. I'm happy to report about these. And that's a wrap for the first week of Live Open Daily. If you've been tuned in, I greatly appreciate it. And you already know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word. I really want this thing to grow. And I will talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend.